Good morning. Welcome to the Planet Doug podcast for Thursday, December 26, 2024, the day after Christmas. The Planet Doug podcast, otherwise known as Morning Coffee with Doug, otherwise known as my video journal. Call it what you will. I'm here on the morning after Christmas Day, enjoying a cup of instant coffee and talking to you and telling some stories. I tried to shed a little bit more light on the situation. I noticed the last couple of videos I shot here in my room at the Malahayati Hotel in Tanjung Balai were probably quite dark. And that's because this is a very dark room. And I normally make these rooms brighter because I travel with my own light bulb. And then I'd plug in the light bulb and shed a bit more. I get the brightest light bulb I can find because these low-budget hotels generally skimp out on the lights. They tend to be very low wattage, and there's only one light in the center of the ceiling up there, and it's not a very bright room. But the light bulb that I have broke because I don't have any actual luggage right now. Like I don't have a suitcase or a backpack, so it's hard to really protect my luggage. I just have a flexible vinyl bag that I wrap up with rope, and I guess when I carried it here from Maidan, it bent and broke my light bulb, and I haven't bought a new one. But anyway, here I tried to make it a bit brighter. I raised the brightness on the GoPro, and then I opened the curtain. I do have one window in this room, and the curtain is normally drawn because people walk by on the balcony all the time and they can just stand in the window and look in at me and wave at me. And so I usually have the curtain closed. But for the sake of light, I opened it up this time, so maybe I look a little bit brighter this time, a little bit more cheerful because of the lighting situation. I've got a little bit of a headache going this morning. I don't know why. So it's hard for me to focus. I'm a real wimp when it comes to pain. I think a lot of men like to think of themselves as pretty tough. And yet I know from experience, I'm not tough at all. And pain just does me in. Like if I'm ever sick to my stomach and I have terrible stomach cramps or something like that, I'm done. I can't handle the pain. I have very low pain tolerance levels apparently. And if I have any kind of a headache like I have now, it just does me in. I can't imagine people who have migraines, like real migraine headaches. Oh, that must be brutal because I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle that kind of pain. But we'll see whether this headache recedes at all. But anyway, I'm having trouble focusing because of this. I have a tiny headache, and it just finishes me off. So yeah, Christmas was pretty low key, as you might imagine. There was nothing going on here for Christmas. The big event for me was going across the road. There's a fancy pastry shop that I've known about. I've seen it there for all the time I've been staying here in Tanjung Balai. I've known about that pastry shop, but I'm not a big pastry guy. It's not like I wake up in the morning and think, ooh, I need a sweet cake of some kind. Like I didn't even know what they sold over there because I never went over to look. But yesterday I paid for a couple of more nights at this hotel, so I was downstairs in the lobby, and then I looked across the street and I saw that pastry shop, and I felt kind of bad that I've never gone over there because they see me. When you're a foreigner in a neighborhood like this, everything you do is noticed. People pay attention. So they'll see, oh, the foreigner, he goes over here to buy milk. He goes to the Indomaret instead of the Alpha Mart. So, wow, he's insulting the Alpha Mart because he never goes there. Or he likes to go to this noodle shop, but not that one. People really see what you're doing. They see how you dress. They see how you behave. And stories about you will flow around the neighborhood. So you have to kind of be aware of that. You're like representing foreigners in general by your behavior, the way you look, the things you do. And I felt kind of bad that I'd never gone over to that pastry shop. I'm sure they see me every single day going out of this hotel, going around my neighborhood, coming back, going out, coming back. And they're like, he's never come to our shop. And they might feel bad about that. So I thought, finally, yesterday I can fix that. Because it was Christmas Day, I thought I could get myself a treat. And I went across the road. And to my surprise, they had donuts. A big display of very big, very fancy donuts. We're not talking about lightweight, fluffy things. These were almost like cakes. I found out because I bought 3 of them. I bought one with coconut toppings, one with nut toppings, and one with chocolate sprinkles. And every one of them was much more than I thought. I got more than I bargained for. Heavy, thick, doughy kind of, and not just chocolate sprinkles on top. The whole donut was covered in layers of chocolate on top of chocolate on top of chocolate. Same thing with the coconut donut. It wasn't just coconut sprinkles. The whole donut was covered in a thick, sweet honey glaze of some kind. Anyway, these were pretty amazing donuts, and I had 3 of them, and that was actually kind of my breakfast yesterday. 3 donuts and coffee. That was my Christmas morning breakfast. And of course, my Christmas present for the entire year and probably the next 5 years to come is what I see over there on the little desk in this room, the Asus A16 tough laptop. So that is my that present from a Planet Doug subscriber covers all my birthdays and all of Christmases and everything for this year and quite a few other years. So yeah, there you go for a Christmas present. Can't really beat that. And the big news for me personally is that I got my visa extension approval. I told the story before about how I applied for my visa extension online. You can do that now, but Indonesia put in a new policy this year where you can't do everything online anymore. You can apply for it online, but based on your address, so like in your application, you have to put in the name of your hotel, and the key thing is you have to put in the area code or the zip code, whatever they call it here, or the postal code, I guess. And once you enter the postal code, it automatically fills out everything else in your application, your neighborhood and your district and your region and your province and your state or whatever all those things are. It gets filled out automatically, but you have to put in the correct postal code. And then based on that postal code, your application is sent to the nearest immigration office in that region, and then an immigration officer has to open up your application individually, one by one, all the extension applications, and examine all the documents and go over it, and then approve it. And I was worried about that because I'd heard stories of people waiting weeks and weeks to get their approval, and then while they're waiting for their approval, the original visa expires and they end up in the country illegally. So this was a surprise to me, and I wasn't expecting it. But it wasn't yesterday morning, I don't think. It wasn't a Christmas present. It was on this December 24th, 2 mornings ago, I got an email. And the email was from immigration. You have to be very careful to put in your correct email address because that's how they communicate with you. And I got an email from them, and my visa extension application was approved. And I think it took, I lost track of the days. I think it took 11 days, 10 or 11 days to get the approval, which I guess isn't bad. But I did apply way in advance because those are the sort of things I do. So my visa still hadn't expired, and I gave myself plenty of time. I can see a lot of people waiting until like even a week before their visa expires, and then they apply for the extension. And had I waited until a week before expiry, then my visa would have expired before I got the extension. So I would have been in the country technically illegally. But I applied like 2 weeks before my visa expired, more than 2 weeks actually. And then, even though I had to wait 10 days to get the approval, my current visa is still valid. And then the visa extension is now approved. And I was happy to see that the visa extension is a 30-day extension. It doesn't date from the approval date. It dates from when your visa expires. So that's good to know. You're never quite sure how they're going to handle these things. But of course, there was confusion. There's always confusion when it comes to Indonesia. Because I got this email and it didn't say anything. It was essentially a blank email. There was no content. I was expecting it to say whatever, dear sir, dear Doug, whatever. Your application for a 30-day e-visa has been approved. We have approved your application for a visa extension. Please click on the button below to download your visa extension. I thought it would say something, whether in Indonesian or English, I don't care. I thought there would be a body to the email, but there was nothing. It was just an empty email. And here in Indonesia, they're not very careful about what they call things. So for someone like me, I pay attention to details. And it got very, very confusing. I even have to refer to some notes here just to get it straight in my head, because there was nothing in the email, but in the subject line it says e-stay permit. So e-stay permit. But when you download the document, like your actual digital visa, it doesn't say e-stay permit, it says visit stay permit. So even within the email itself, they use two different words for the same thing. But neither of them says anything about an extension, right? I applied for an extension, so I thought what I would get, my document would be 30-day visa extension. But in the email itself, there's no reference to an extension at all. In the email, it says e-stay permit. And then in the document itself, it doesn't say this is an extension. It says visit stay permit. And even that doesn't make any sense, because if you go to the Indonesian immigration website to start this whole process, the landing page gives you two options. There's two completely different sections of the immigration website. Section 1 says e-visa. And Section 2 says stay permit. So an e-visa and a stay permit are two completely different things. But when you apply for your e-visa online and they approve it, what they send you, they call it a visit stay permit. So it's like, hold it. Why are you giving me a stay permit when I applied for an e-visa? You see what I mean? Like I said, there's two completely different sections. You can either apply for an e-visa or you can apply for a stay permit. They are two completely different things. But when you apply for your e-visa, they send you a stay permit. So now I don't know what I have. It's like, and then when you apply for the extension, you get an e-stay visa permit. They take these 5 or 6 words and just jumble them together, and they just call them different things. No matter what document you get, what email you get, what part of the website you look at, they have a different word for everything. And I was thinking about that, and it seemed to me it wouldn't be that hard to figure it out. I don't have the notes here, but I sat down and I thought it through logically, like, okay, there's confusion here, but maybe the confusion is necessary. Maybe it's so complicated, it has to be a little bit of a mix-up. But I thought about it and said, well, it's not that hard at all, because you can get a visa. Like if you go to the embassy, the Indonesian embassy overseas, and apply for a visa, that's one thing. But if you don't and you just arrive in the country, then you get a visa on arrival. So those are the two basic categories. You've got a visa, and then you've got a VOA. And with the VOA, you can apply for the VOA at the airport, which means you get a VOA, or you can apply for it online, which means you get an e-VOA. And then once you have your e-VOA, you can get an extension. So then you can get an e-VOA extension. How hard is that? It's not that hard. You basically got four things. You got your visa, then you've got your visa on arrival, then you've got your e-visa on arrival, and an e-visa on arrival extension. So, I mean, if they hired me to come in and clean up this language problem, I could do it over a cup of coffee. So these are the different categories of things you offer. Here are the four names you can use. So you don't need e-stay permit. You don't need visit stay permit. You don't need, I mean, I don't understand why government departments can have to be so confusing and be so inaccurate. Like applying just the tiniest bit of logic, you can easily fix things. But anyway, whatever I got, whatever they gave me, the important thing is the date. That's, I mean, the fact that I got a permit. You can call it a visa, e-visa, visa on arrival, e-visa on arrival, or e-visa on arrival extension, but that's what I got. I got an e-VOA extension, but whatever they called it, you have to look at the date, and the expiry date is the important thing, and my expiry date is January 28th, which is like 30 days after my original visa on arrival expires. So everything lines up perfectly. And when I leave the country on or before January 28th, then everything should work out. So I did get the extension, and the dates are right. My name is spelled correctly. It's the right passport number, et cetera, et cetera. So everything looks good. A quick Patreon update. The last time I was talking about Patreon, I was thinking about taking all the work that I had done up until now and getting rid of it. I had set up basically, well, 4 tiers, but 5 levels. So there's like free membership, and then I had 4 tiers. The forest planet, city planet, ocean planet, and mountain planet. And then I designed a whole bunch of perks and benefits for those different tiers. And I was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed, as I talked about. When I came here to Sumatra, I brought my bike with me, and then I had the little detour to go get the laptop, and everything just kind of piled up in my brain, and I was feeling really overwhelmed with everything that was going on. And I decided that I don't think I can handle this kind of a Patreon. So I was thinking about making it simple, just getting rid of everything and just having a membership level. And what you can do on Patreon is you don't set a price for Patreon membership. You just say, sign up for the Planet Doug Patreon, and whatever you feel like contributing to support what I'm doing, you can just do whatever you like and just leave it open and then have everything the same. And that's what I thought about that, is like, that's probably a better idea because my brain can't handle it. But since then, I've gotten a few good nights sleep. I've come back to Tanjung Balai. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more energetic. And I like what I've done with the Patreon. I think it's fun to have the different planets, the forest planet, the ocean planet, and this, that. And I think my brain, I'm detail oriented. So, my story about the visas demonstrates that. I pay attention to details, so it's not a big deal for me to have a complicated Patreon. So I've gone back to that. That is what I'm going to stick with. But I discovered something about Patreon that just blew my mind. It's so crazy, because I thought there was one big problem with Patreon, that there was no way to do any bulk edits. So at a certain point, I decided to take everything that I've posted to Patreon. I think I already have like 190 posts on Patreon, all different varieties: photo posts, text, video, audio, links, all kinds of different types of posts. And they're all assigned to different tiers and different access levels. But I decided that when I launched the Patreon, I want everything to be wide open. So I still haven't decided whether this is the right thing to do, but my idea was, when I tell people about the Patreon, I want everybody to be able to go there and see everything that I've posted. So you don't have to be a member at all. You don't even have to have a Patreon account, I don't think. And you'll be able to see everything that I'm doing there. And then that can give you an idea. It's like, that's what it's all about. Because if I assign everything to different tiers, everything is going to be locked. And then people will say, Planet Doug Patreon, let's go look at it. Then they go look at it, and it's like, well, we can't see anything. Locked, locked, locked. You have to join to unlock everything. So that seemed kind of silly to me. It would be like opening a store, and you have a grand opening, and yet when people come into the store, they can't see what you're selling. It's like, well, everything's covered up. How do we know whether this is a good store or a bad store? We can't see any of the products you're selling. Anyway, so my idea was to go back and change everything, the access level, to public, and then everybody can see everything. But I had to do it individually. Every single post, I had to find it, open it for editing, click on the edit button, click through all the stages, change the access level to public, save it. And then on Patreon, what happens is you get kicked out and you go all the way back to the top of the feed, and then you've got to go through the entire feed to go all the way to the end, which takes a long time. Find post number 2, edit it, go through the stages, change the access level, save it, all the way back to the top of the feed, scroll all the way to the bottom. It took me 2 days. It took me 2 days basically just to change the access level to public on all of the posts. And then I found out just a couple of days ago, so stupid, Patreon does have bulk edit capability. I could have taken that 2 days of work and done it in 2 minutes. I just didn't know it was there. I had no idea, but Patreon actually has what they call a library feature. You click on library, it opens up your entire library of posts. You can filter them, you can sort them, you can select them. And what I could have done was go select all, bulk edit, change access to public, save, done. Crazy. But yeah, I didn't know about it. I didn't know it was there. I don't know how I didn't know. I've been working on Patreon for months, and I've read everything. I've gone over everything. I've looked everywhere. I've clicked on all the menus. I've experimented with everything, and for some reason, I missed this bulk edit feature. I didn't know it was there, but now I do. So that was something. A couple other technology stories. 2 of them about my laptop, the Asus TUF A16. I'm still having trouble with one of the USB-C ports. I don't know why. This laptop has 2 of them. One of them is a USB-C 4, which means it's the latest model with the fastest speeds. And the other one is a USB-C 3.2, I think, which is still super fast, but it's the previous generation. USB 4 is the newest, and my USB 4 port works all the time, which is great, but the USB 3 port, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and I'm still trying to figure out what the problem is. Occasionally I turn on the laptop and it won't work. When I plug in my my external SSD drive, I plug it in and it won't read it. And then I go into the system, into the settings, and I can see underneath the USB-C, the USB drivers, all the USB system files, there's one file that will have a triangle and an exclamation mark. And it means there's a problem with it. And then I can reinstall that driver, reboot the laptop, and now it works. And it might work for a couple of days, and then one day I wake up and I turn on the laptop and it doesn't work again, and I have to reinstall the driver and reboot the laptop. And I don't know why. I don't know what the problem is. But it's not a big deal because, as I said, I have 2 USB-C ports and 2 USB-A ports. So I'm fully covered in terms of ports. I don't really, well, I was going to say I don't really need the second USB-C port, but I kind of do because they're so fast, and I'm often plugging in 2 things at a time. I'll plug in my card reader with a memory card in it from my GoPro. That goes into one USB-C port, and I plug in the SSD drive into the other, and I copy from the memory card to the drive. I copy between them all the time. So I need to plug in 2 devices simultaneously. And yeah, sometimes I can't. I plug it in and then it doesn't work. And I'm like, oh, for Pete's sake. And now I got to reboot, reinstall, go through the process and get it to work again. It's kind of weird. But one thing I discovered when I was doing all these experiments is that the speed of USB 4 combined with an SSD drive is unbelievable. This is something I've been struggling with for a long time because it has taken me a long time just to copy gigabytes of data back and forth. It can take up a good chunk of my day just copying files. But while I was doing this, I did a test where I was copying from the SSD drive plugged into the USB 4 port to my laptop's SSD drive. So SSD external to SSD internal. It copies, I made a note, it copies at 800 megabytes per second. 800 megabytes per second. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I had like 90 gigabytes I needed to copy. And I thought, well, this is going to take an hour. I might as well get a cup of coffee. I plugged the thing in and I watched the meter that tracks the copying, and it just went zzz, and it was done. 800 megabytes per second. I hit copy and it just goes zzz, and it was finished. Unbelievably fast. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. 800 megabytes per second. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. The fastest I've ever gotten, I think, is around 40 to 60 megabytes per second. I thought that was fast, but now I've got 800 megabytes per second. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, 800 megabytes, that's almost a gigabyte. So it's practically a gigabyte per second. So if you're copying 90 gigabytes, it takes a minute and a half. It was unbelievably fast. So that was very cool. The other small technology story is that YouTube is rolling out automatic dubbing, which is really kind of interesting, where if you're using one of the main languages, well, one of YouTube's main languages, they're talking about European languages, to be honest. I can't remember what the list was, but it was like English, French, Spanish, Italian, and then I think there might maybe I don't know if Chinese and Hindi, like big Asian languages, were on there or not. I can't remember. But anyway, so there's a list of languages now where if I post my video and I'm speaking in English, at some point you'll be able to click on the settings wheel and then just change it to French. And now you'll get an AI generated voice basically speaking what I'm saying in English. You'll actually get a French track or Italian or Greek or whatever languages they offer, which is pretty cool. And I've seen it on other YouTube channels and I played around with it, and the French sounded amazing. The French really sounded good. I played around with a bunch of the languages and it seemed to work really, really well. But I don't know whether it's only available for certain channels and certain countries, and I'm still not entirely clear. It told me, I got an email or a message from YouTube saying it's available on Planet Doug, but I haven't seen it anywhere. So I don't know whether it's there or not, and maybe it doesn't work on mobile, it only works on a browser, on a laptop or a computer. I'm not really sure. But anyway, that's pretty exciting. Yeah, another sign about how AI is changing the world. And you are seeing some benefits to it, though. In these early stages of AI, I see a lot of negative things, particularly on YouTube. And I've talked about that before. I'm just so sick of AI-generated content on YouTube. It's so bad. It's so fake. And there's a lot of people around the world who are taking advantage of AI, because using AI and using computers, you can just generate YouTube content and just flood YouTube with hundreds and hundreds of like YouTube shorts and things like that. And it's all garbage. It's all badly done. The pronunciation is terrible. They use the wrong words. Everything is just bad. And you get all these videos where they're like a YouTube short where something is happening in the video. And I guess whatever it is they're showing, some people find it entertaining to watch the video. But this AI generated content, it puts narration over top of it. And the narration is just horrible to listen to, and it never stops, and it's over the top dramatic, and it's just insulting. I find this AI generated content to be insulting, and I hate it when it shows up on my feed. So I really think YouTube is going to struggle with AI for a while, because people are going to be using AI power to generate junk and just flood YouTube with junk just to make a little bit of money from it, and without any concern for quality, accuracy, artistic integrity, personality, nothing like that. I really hate anything like that. But I guess we're in the beginning stages, so you have to put up with a bunch of crap in order to get to the good stuff. And I can see dubbing in other languages being pretty good. As I talked about before, I remember watching a video from Mr. Beast, and he's always being interviewed, and people ask him about the success he's had. How were you so successful? And he talks about all his strategies for becoming a megastar on YouTube. And one thing he pointed out was that he was one of the first to take all of his videos and manually dub them into other languages. And he made, he had a Mr. Beast channel, but then he made a Mr. Beast Spanish channel, a Mr. Beast French channel, and he put all his videos in these other languages and posted them as separate videos on separate channels. At least that's what he said in the interviews. And that led to his YouTube presence just exploding, because he captured this huge Spanish-speaking market, people who wouldn't normally watch his videos because they don't speak English, but now they have his videos in Spanish. He have his videos in French. So now everybody has access to that, but it has to be done automatically, and people have to know about it, and then people have to select it. But anyway, still it's a pretty pretty cool thing that AI can do. YouTube stories. The big YouTube story is a new video that just came out yesterday. It popped up on my feed at about, 11:30 or something like that. I was actually getting ready to go to sleep, and then this video from Itchy Boots popped up, and I had to watch it right away because it looked like such a fascinating story. And the video is called "They Stole My Motorcycle in Iraq." It's season 8, episode 22. Newest video, it's about 28 minutes long, I think. And at first, I have to admit, I was curious whether it was clickbait, because she does tend to over-dramatize everything that happens. And then I saw the title, "They Stole My Motorcycle," and then on the thumbnail it said, "Thieves," and it shows a big picture of Noraly's face, and she's looking at something, and then her eye line with an arrow is looking at her motorcycle. So I was thinking, did somebody really steal her motorcycle, or did somebody just try to steal it, or somebody moved it and she didn't know they moved it and they thought they stole it, but she put that in the title anyway. She would do things like that with her video titles. So that was the first thing I thought, is I wonder if this is a clickbait or not. Because when you think about it, she's been riding motorcycles all around the world for many, many years. And it's kind of surprising that she has not been the victim of theft until now. I'm not aware of any big moments in her travels where she was robbed, her motorcycle was stolen, or laptop was stolen, or cameras. I can't think of anything. Pickpockets. People broke into her hotel room, stole everything. I don't think that ever happened to her in all of her trips. So if it really was true this time, it would be a big event, and it would be particularly big because she made such a big deal out of this motorcycle in particular. It's a Yamaha Tenerife or something like that, a 600cc motorcycle. Dates, I think, from the 1980s, and she started this season with, 6, 8, 10, a number of videos about only the motorcycle, putting it together. She hired a very special mechanic in Germany, Moritz, something like that, Moritz, who works on this type of old school motorbike. So her idea for this journey was to go old school, and she wanted a motorbike that didn't have modern computers and chips and processors and things like that. She wanted an old school motorbike that was manual, everything can be fixed manually, and that was her whole idea. And she made such a big deal out of having this motorcycle custom built, custom designed, posted a lot of videos about it. There was a lot of debate online, a lot of discussion. Is this really a good choice on her part? Because there was this concern that the mechanic who built the motorcycle for her put in so many custom built elements that maybe it defeated the original purpose. I mean, the original purpose was to buy an old, simple motorbike so that no matter where you go in the world, anybody could fix it. They don't have to have special tools. They don't have to have like a modern motorbike, like modern cars. When a mechanic is working on your car, it seems crazy to me, but they have to plug it into a computer to figure out what's wrong with it. You have to take your laptop out to the car and you plug it into the USB drive or whatever, and then from the computer, you figure out what's wrong with your motorcycle. That's how modern motorcycles work, and there are so many components, the electronics, the computer systems that can malfunction. And then once a little computer chip malfunctions, and the motorcycle won't turn on anymore. So Noraly's idea was to get a simple motorbike that anybody in the world can fix. But it seemed to be such a special custom build that even though it's an old, simple motorbike, you can't take it to a local mechanic because they would have no idea what they're looking at. They don't know what the guy did with the wiring, with the flow of the fuel, the carburetor, the everything about it. He designed it himself with all his own ideas, and so it's not like a factory built bike. It's a custom build with so much complexity in the custom build. It felt like, So anyway, a lot of people were talking about it. Good choice, bad choice, how will it work out? A lot of debate going on. So the motorcycle itself, it was a big, big part of her journey this time. Well, it always is, but it seemed especially important this time. And she just started her journey. So now, if that particular motorcycle is gone, it's stolen, that's a big, big deal for her journey, for her YouTube channel, for her ideas. Everything would just go out the window. So it was like, wow. That's why I watched the video last night. I was so curious about what happened. Plus, I love stories about people being robbed. I was thinking this morning why I'm so fascinated with that, because even on YouTube, if I have some time to kill, I look for robbery videos. I enjoy watching them. Like I'll type into YouTube or Google pickpockets, snatch thieves, all these types of robberies that can occur, and people put together compilations of them, and I like watching them. And it occurred to me that maybe I enjoy them because it's a rare moment in our lives where something dramatic happens. Like most of our lives are pretty boring. Nothing interesting really ever happens. We all go through our days. They're all routine. Nothing exciting happens. We watch all these Hollywood movies where everybody is having big adventures all the time, and our own lives are pretty darn boring by comparison. But if you get robbed, wow, that is a big event in your life. It's exciting, it's dramatic, and it really tests you. How do you react? How do you behave? What happens? And it's a very interesting part of somebody's life when they are robbed, whether it's like in their face, somebody actually confronting them and robbing them, or they just break into your hotel room, break into your house, cut the lock on your bicycle, steal your bicycle. So anything like that is a very dramatic moment in anybody's life. So I think that's why I find them, it's a rare moment of drama in an otherwise uninteresting life, But anyway, for whatever reason, I find them fascinating. I had to watch this video right away, and I was hoping that it was true. I really didn't want it to be clickbait. I wanted her motorcycle to be stolen because I thought the video would be very interesting from that point of view. So I was relieved when the second the video started, it opened with Noraly rushing down the hallway of her hotel in Iraq. She's in the city of Erbil. I think it's called Erbil. What is it? Erbil. It's the capital of the Kurdistan region of Iraq. That's where she is right now, or that's where she was when this happened, Erbil. Big city, the capital of Kurdistan. And she's staying in a very nice hotel, and she's rushing down the hallway, speaking into her GoPro. I'm not really sure what camera she was using, but I think it was her GoPro. And she was just, the first thing she says is like, she calls her motorcycle Frankie, and she's rushing down the hallway going, "Frankie's been stolen. Frankie is gone." And then she went down to the lobby to go talk to the hotel staff and summon the troops and try to figure out what happened. So it really was true that this happened. And the very first thing that jumped out at me, and I find this quite interesting, was that the staff in the hotel were so blasé about it, so unconcerned. And In the comments to the video, you see a lot of people pointing that out, and a lot of people are saying, I think the hotel staff were in on it, that they are in on the theft. They saw the motorcycle, they contacted their friends, told them about it, told them where it was and how to get it, and that they were in on the theft. I don't believe that myself, but in a way, when you watch the reaction of the staff, you can sort of believe it. And I find this a fascinating component of every story about theft I've ever seen. And I experienced only one theft, I think, one dramatic theft. It was here in Sumatra when I was riding my bike, and a man on a motorcycle came up beside me, and I thought this man was just being friendly, and he was going to say, hello, where are you from? What is your name, etc. And then instead of doing that, he reached over and grabbed my smartphone, stole my smartphone, and then took off. And that was a very dramatic thing for me, because I've told this story many times. That was my very first smartphone that I ever had in my lifetime. I just bought it in Kuala Lumpur. I was just learning how to use it, and it was a very dramatic thing for me to have this guy steal my smartphone like that. And one thing I noticed is that the difference between Hollywood and reality, right? Because in movies and in TV shows, when a theft occurs, it's like a big dramatic thing. And I think we are trained by Hollywood to imagine that if there is a theft, somebody steals something amazing happens. It's like, stop, thief! And then you can run after the thief, and you're chasing the thief through the crowds. And then the police are involved. The police jump onto their motorcycles and they chase the thief, and there's all this activity, and it's a big dramatic thing. But in reality, there is no drama, because you're the only one who's excited. So Noraly, she rushed down to the lobby, and I think in her mind, she goes up to the hotel staff, and she's like, they stole my motorcycle. My motorcycle is gone. And she had air tags in her motorcycle. She had 2 air tags. So she had the app. AirTag, is that an Apple thing? I think they're Apple AirTags. Maybe. She probably has an iPhone, right? I think the Samsung, they're called Smart Tags. Yeah, so she calls them AirTags. I think that's an Apple product. But anyway, she had the app open on her phone, and she could see where her motorcycle was located, and it was moving. So in her mind, we gotta go now. Let's go, let's out the door, let's chase them, because she's looking at the app, and she can see her motorcycle. It's close to the hotel. It's like right around the corner, and it's moving. And so she rushes down to the lobby. She's out of breath. She's excited. She's panicked. She's in shock a little bit. And then she goes up to the hotel staff. My motorcycle, it's been stolen. It's been stolen. But instead of everybody rallying the troops and rushing out the door to go chase the thieves, everybody just sort of looked at her like, what? Nobody reacted. Nobody responded. And she's like, my motorcycle, it's been stolen. It's right here. And then the first guy she was talking to just sort of pointed to the other guy, just said, oh, talk to him. And she's like, oh, okay, who, you, and talk to him. And then nobody did anything, right? They said something about, oh, well, we should call the police. And she's like, yeah, call the, but, she's going out of her mind. And then they're talking about calling the police. And I guess they did call the police. And now she's standing there. And I guess in her mind, it would be in my mind as well, she's expecting action. She's expecting people to be excited, to be interested, to be engaged. And she's expecting the door to burst open and these police would pour in. There would be the hotel security guard would show up with his gun, because isn't Iraq full of guns and security guards? That's my image of Iraq anyway. And that in her mind, I think that's what she was expecting, that all these men with guns would suddenly go with her and they'd run out the door and chase the thieves. And it must have been so frustrating for her because nobody did anything. They all just stood around and kind of looked at her. Oh yeah, the police, we called the police. And then Itchy Boots waited. I don't know how long she waited, but she waited for a few minutes maybe. And then she had to finally, like, where are the police? Are they coming? Are they coming? And they're like, oh yeah, police are coming, police are coming. And then she finally said to them, listen, it's right here. It's right around. I gotta go. I'm gonna go alone. We've got to go. Let's go. Let's, come on. Let's see some action here. And the guys in the hotel were like, well, we wait for the police. And then finally she conveyed so much urgency that the hotel front desk clerk, he's like, let me call the manager. I will call the manager. And she's like, manager? Like, come on, what's the No, we go now. We've got to go now. And it must have been so frustrating for her. I could feel her urgency. And again, what I was talking about earlier, I could relate to that because you, being the victim of the theft, you're in such a different mindset from everyone around you. And I remember feeling that when my phone was stolen, partially because, again, I think we have this image that when someone steals something like a snatch theft, we think about the chase, that you can chase them down, and you think that everybody around you will see what happened and they'll all go, oh, thief, 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 thief. But in reality, it happens so fast, nobody noticed. You are the only one who even knows what happened. So you're standing there like an idiot going, thief, 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 he stole my phone, he stole my phone. And then all the people around you, they're like, and they just keep walking because nobody knows what happened. Nobody saw it. Nobody's paying attention. They don't speak English. They don't know what you're talking about. And then you're in the middle of this crisis, this emergency, and you're expecting everybody to start running after the thief, but nobody reacts in any way. And then in my case, when my phone was stolen, I was on my bicycle and I saw the guy on the motorcycle, and my first instinct was to chase him, but it was really hard to cross the street because he was on a motorbike and he just like zoomed around. And then I had trouble getting across traffic. I eventually did, but then the guy gets to the corner and he's gone. They vanish. And it's the same thing. Like if you're sitting in a coffee shop, you're sitting at a table having a coffee and you put your phone down on the coffee shop table, you think it's safe because it's right there, but it isn't safe because anybody could just pick it up, run, and they're gone. Nobody will notice. You'll notice and you'll go, hey, he stole my phone, he stole my phone. But the guy will run away, turn down the first alley, and he's gone. You can run to the alley, you'll look down the alley, and if you're in a Hollywood movie, you'll see the guy. He'll be 10 feet ahead of you, and then you can run after him. But in reality, you won't know. You won't see the person. You don't know what they look like. You don't know how old they were, how tall, what clothing. You won't notice any of these details. And the second the guy gets 5 feet away from you in a crowd, they're gone. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then in my case, right before the theft, I had visited an English school where I had a long conversation with teachers and the front desk clerk at this English school. And they were right there at the corner where the theft took place. And I was panicking partially because I didn't have any experience with smartphones at that time, and my phone wasn't locked. So I knew the thief could open my phone. It was wide open. There was no pin on it because I had taken the lock off temporarily and then I didn't put it back on. So they could go into my email, they could go into my bank accounts. I had money back in those days. I had a little bit of money in the bank. And they had access to my entire life. So I was panicked. I didn't know what to do. And I was I was there by myself. I had no support. I had no friends. I didn't know what to do. And the first thing I thought of, well, I went around the corner, and then there was a security guard standing there outside of the shopping mall. And I thought, oh, he must have seen the thief. So I go cycling up to the guard, I'm like, my phone was stolen. Someone stole my phone. Did you see him? Did you see him? Which way did he go? And of course, the security guard is looking at me like I'm a lunatic, because in my mind, I thought he would have seen the thief go by. Oh, there goes the thief. But how would he know? The thief was just one guy on a motorcycle out of 100 going by every minute. He's like looking at me going, I don't know what you're talking. I don't speak English. Thief. Like in my mind, I thought everybody in the world would have seen the thief take my phone and everybody would be watching. But of course, nobody saw it happen. Nobody cares if they did. So the security guard was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So then I went into the English school and I was hoping that they would help me, that they would, oh my goodness, oh, your phone was stolen. Let me help you. Let me call the police. I thought they would do something. And then the people at the English school just looked at me like what do you want from us? Like nobody felt the same urgency that I did. They didn't call the police. They didn't offer any help. They didn't do anything. And what you quickly learn when someone robs you, you're on your own. And you don't think about it that way, because in Hollywood movies, you're not on your own. There's always people are aware of what happened to you and they care about what happened to you. But in reality, they're all living their own lives. So again, Noraly rushes down to the lobby, and I think maybe in her mind, she's aware of how huge this is for her. The motorcycle is the most important thing in the universe to her, and it was stolen. And she thought other people would get on board with the urgency, but everybody in the hotel were just the police are coming, don't worry about it, it's okay. And I hate it when people reassure you. And I think people were telling her, like, it's okay, police are coming. And she must have had a lot of self-control, because I would be shouting, no, quit telling me it's okay. It's not okay. And I didn't think of this at the time, but it's occurring to me now. This hotel had a security guard, right? Must have had. But in all the conversations at the front desk, Noraly was at the front desk for a significant amount of time. At no point was the security guard summoned. There was no mention of CCTV cameras. There was no mention of doing anything. They were just standing around going, yeah, police, we have to call the police. And like, well, yeah, call the police. And it occurs to me that at the least, the security guard should have been there. But then eventually Noraly had no choice. She was going to go by herself, because as far as she could tell, the motorcycle was just around the corner and the thieves were going to get away unless they act right now. And it turns out that a man went with her. And during the main part of the video, we don't know who the man is. We don't find out until later, because Noraly tells the story in retrospect and fills in a lot of the gaps. But at the time, all we see is that we see some shoes, which kind of puzzled me, because Noraly did film this. She was holding her GoPro, but then when she left the hotel and was walking down the street quickly to go find her motorcycle, the camera was pointing at her phone the entire time. It had the app open, and then the camera was pointing down at the phone, at her hand, and we could see her feet, and we could see the feet of a man walking with her. So my brain, of course, being a casual, less professional YouTuber, I don't know how. I was wondering, how in the world is she holding the camera? Like, is it a phone or is it a GoPro? I think it was a GoPro. But her hands, like, is she holding it like this? with her other hand? And if so, why is she pointing it down the entire time? Like, why didn't she ever lift it up to show where she's walking? It felt weird to me. So anyway, we never saw the man. We only saw his feet. And I assumed the guy worked for the hotel. Obviously, he must be a hotel employee. But then later on, Itchy Boots said, no, he wasn't. He was just another guest at the hotel. It was just some random man who decided to go with her. And of course, it was very nice of him to do that. And without him, Noraly was going to be, running down the street to find the man or men or gang who stole her motorcycle. And of course, if she found her motorcycle and there were like 5 men standing around her motorbike trying to get it started and they had weapons and stuff, like what in the world is she going to do? So it's kind of crazy for Noraly to go chasing after the thieves by herself. But at the same time, I would do the exact same thing. I mean, if this had been me, I would have been out the door like a shot, running up the street. If I saw the AirTag and it was right around the corner, I don't think I would even have been as patient as her, where she stood at the counter for a few minutes and they're like waiting for the police to show up. I think I would have just run straight. Like I would have told them, my motorcycle's been stolen, call the police. And once they understood they needed to call the police, I'm out the door and I'm running. But again, I'm a guy, so I have a little bit more confidence when it comes to confronting thieves. And this was around, it was pretty late in the morning. This was like full daylight. Originally, I had the idea that this was happening early in the morning. But as I found out later, when she found her motorcycle on the street. She eventually found it just sitting there on the street. She said it was 8:30 in the morning. So it would be full daylight. So it's not like this was middle of the night or anything. So there would be people around, and so it's not as dangerous as doing it in the dark. But anyway, Itchy Boots leaves the hotel with this man going with her, and they're walking. And there are all kinds of little details in this story. I have so many questions because I really like to understand exactly what happened. And I've watched the video twice now, and I read through all the comments and the video description, looking for every single detail I can find. So what happened, in fact, was that Noraly went down to have breakfast. She had breakfast at the hotel. And then after breakfast, she went out to go look at her motorcycle or do something, and that's when she saw her motorcycle was gone. Originally, I thought she looked out the window of her room and saw it was gone, but no, she had to go outside the hotel, go look at her motorcycle, and it was gone, and all she saw was the cover. The cover that she puts over her motorbike was lying on the ground. And then she ran back into the hotel, and I guess she didn't have her phone with her, or she didn't have her, I guess she had her phone with her, but she didn't have the motorcycle key. So then she ran up to her room, or took the elevator up to her room, went into her room, got the key, thinking that if she found her motorcycle, she needs to be able to start it up and ride away. And then she went down into the lobby and told everybody, my motorcycle was stolen, waiting for the police, gave up on the useless hotel staff, and then she went out the door. But then as they were walking towards where the AirTag pin was, she did say to the guy, oh, we might have to take a taxi to chase these guys, but I didn't bring any money. So again, I was thinking about that. It's like, how would you react in an emergency? Ideally, of course, you go back to your room, you know your motorcycle's been stolen, you're going to go chase down the thieves. Well, you would bring the keys to your motorbike, you'd bring well, she's a YouTuber, she's got to bring a camera, so she had to think about that. Okay, which camera do I bring? Oh, do I have a microphone? Do I have Is that batteries charged up, memory card? So hats off to her. She had enough presence of mind to stop, get the camera, turn it on, and start filming. A lot of people maybe wouldn't even have done that. And I have noticed that over the years, Noraly often doesn't film the most dramatic moments because she gets so caught up in the drama of the moment. It never occurs to her to film it. Like when she was in Africa, there was one time she went across a river separate from her motorcycle, like two separate boats. She crossed on one raft, basically, but then while she was waiting, her motorcycle fell off the raft and went into the river. And then she went back, but she never filmed any of that. She never started up a camera, which I always thought was really weird. And a lot of the times when her motorcycle crashed, or a lot of the big dramatic moments, she doesn't actually have on video. But in this case, I'm so happy she had the presence of mind to actually grab a GoPro, start it up, and start filming. But again, you would think she would bring everything, like grab her money belt that might contain her passport, ID, phone numbers, money, and anything she might need because she's going out to chase the thieves. And yeah, you might need to bring money. But I guess she went out so quickly, she didn't even bring any money with her. But then the story got very, very interesting with a lot of twists and turns. I find the next part of her story quite interesting because I can relate to the thinking pattern that she was following, because almost everything that she was thinking was wrong, but it was based on real information. But like, she didn't really understand the information that she was getting because of the technology. That sounds confusing, but I'll explain what I mean. I find that I'm like this myself. If something happens or I need to do something, I will get an idea in my head, and it's like I have blinders on, and I can only see this one solution, this one idea, and it turns out that I'm completely wrong, and the real solution was over here, and it's so obvious, but I get fixated on something that's right in front of me. So in this case, Noraly was using the air tags, and she could see that it was moving. So she automatically made the assumption that the thieves still had the bike, and it was moving so slowly. So the assumption, I think, was that they were pushing the bike along the street because it was moving so slowly. They weren't actually driving it or riding it because it was moving. So she made that assumption. And then when she finally got to, while she was chasing after them, her air tags split into two. And as she said, she had two air tags on the motorcycle, but now she had two locations marked. And her thought, immediate one, was, oh, the thieves are looking for the air tags, and they found one and they threw it away, and now there's two marks because the air tag has been removed, but the one on the motorcycle is still there, but the thieves are still looking for the second one. And if they find the second one and throw it away, then they're gone, and she'll never find her motorcycle. So that gave her another sense of urgency. She saw that the motorcycle was moving, and then she saw two air tags. So it was like even more urgency in her mind. And then she walked down the street and actually arrived where the air tag was pointing her. So she was standing there on the sidewalk, and the air tag was right beside her, but inside these buildings. So she made the assumption that, okay, it's here. Well, I can see where the air tag is, so the motorcycle must be inside this building. And now they stood in front of the doors of these buildings, and they were talking to the shop owners, talking to the owners of the buildings. They come to the doors, and she's asking them, like, did you see my motorcycle? Is my motorcycle in there? Where is it? And she's probably thinking that this might be one of the thieves, because she can see on the air tag, it's right inside this building. It's right there. So, and you're telling me there's no motorcycle? So maybe you're in on it. And So she ended up standing there on the sidewalk for a long time, and now they're waiting for the police. And everything she was doing was perfectly logical based on the information that she had, but it turns out that none of that information was accurate. So she told the story later on. It turns out that when she was looking at the AirTag and it was moving, it wasn't because the AirTag was actually moving. It was because the tracking system was trying to pinpoint the location. So it was actually the app, the software, and the connection to the AirTag was constantly updating. So it was moving around trying to pinpoint the location. So when she saw the AirTag moving, it wasn't the motorcycle moving, it was just the pin moving. Does that make any sense? So she assumed the motorcycle was moving, but it wasn't. It was stationary the whole time. And then when she was standing in front of the AirTag and it was now stationary, she assumed it was inside the building, but in reality, the AirTag pin was off by like 100 feet. And in fact, the motorcycle wasn't in the building, it was just out on the street. So if you watch the video very carefully, which I did, and then you pause the video and you go frame by frame, at one point, you can see her motorcycle. It's right there on the street. It's like 50 feet away from her. There's a parked car, another parked car, and then her motorcycle. You can see it right on the street. She's 50 feet away from it, but she never notices it. She never sees it because she's focused on the pin. It never occurs to her that the pin is in the wrong location, that her motorcycle might be within 100 yards of that location in a circle. She assumed it was accurate, and she was looking right at her motorcycle in the building, when in fact the motorcycle was sitting on the street right there. And had she been looking around, she would have seen it. But she wasn't looking around, she was focused. So does that make any sense? And then she walked away, and then while she was walking away, one of the people who owned the car got in the car and drove away. So now her motorcycle was in full view, and then Itchy Boots, or Noraly, looked. It was like, oh, there's my motorcycle. It just suddenly, in her mind, it just appeared out of nowhere. So she thought, while she was standing there looking, the thieves rolled her motorcycle out of one of the buildings, parked it on the road, and then ran away. Because in her mind, the motorcycle wasn't there, and then suddenly it was there. So in her mind, the only explanation was that the motorcycle was inside the buildings, and then the thieves saw her looking for it, so they panicked, took the motorcycle out of the building so that people don't know where the thieves were, parked it on the street, and then ran away. So these are all the assumptions she made, but then she found out later on, because she got to watch all the CCTV footage. She saw the CCTV from the hotel and the CCTV from the shop, and she could see exactly what happened. And her motorcycle was sitting there on the street in full view the entire time, and she just didn't actually see it. And even the timing of the theft was completely different from what she thought. And if you go through the comments on the video, everybody leaving comments, oh, so frustrating for me, again, as a YouTuber, and I don't know if it's as frustrating for Noraly. I don't know if she pays attention to her viewers that much. I don't know if she even reads the comments. I don't think she spends a lot of time on it. But when you read through the comments, everybody is saying all these things that are completely untrue, and it's obvious that the people leaving these comments didn't watch the whole video, and if they did watch the video, they weren't even paying attention, because everything they were saying in the comments is completely wrong. And at the end of the video, Noraly explains exactly what happened. But in all the comments, it's like nobody listens to her story anyway, because everybody had their own idea of what happened, and everybody was completely wrong. Anyway, I'll wind up this story, but I need another cup of coffee to get through it. I'll be right back with the last part of this story. All right, coffee number 2. I need this. Still have the headache though. It's fading a little bit, but it's still there. And I do find that when I can't help it when I'm recording a behind-the-scenes video like this, a podcast, coffee with Doug kind of video. I don't need to speak loudly because I've got the microphone right here, but I end up speaking more loudly than I need to. And it kind of wears out my voice and my throat a little bit. So I feel like I'm standing in front of an auditorium orating, and I need to project my voice or something. But I could easily just speak at a normal conversational level, but for some reason I have trouble doing that. I end up raising the level of my voice no matter what. I keep trying to speak at a more conversational level, but then I can't keep that up for some reason, and I get louder and louder. Anyway, I was saying that so many commenters giving their learned opinion were completely wrong. And I do find that there is an instinct and a tendency in comments to be very cynical and dwell on the worst. People enjoy that. People enjoy thinking about the worst that could happen, the worst about everybody. Maybe it's just something about internet in general. Someone like me who doesn't automatically assume the worst, well, I don't have this instinct to jump into her comment section and start telling people. I give my opinion here in hour-long diatribes instead. But anyway, a lot of the comments were just assuming that the hotel staff were in on the theft. And the reason they were saying this, they were giving, their main reason was how disinterested they seemed. They're like, even though Noraly told them my motorcycle was stolen, they didn't seem to get excited, they didn't seem interested, and they seemed to be delaying and like, oh, well, let's call the police, oh, the police are coming. It's almost like they were trying to block Noraly. Maybe they hadn't even called the police at all, things like that. They were so casual, it seemed like they weren't in on it. But as I talked about earlier, that's how people are. You, in your mental state, you just got robbed, you're panicked, and you feel the sense of urgency, and yet, like, people around you, they're like, I don't know, the guy just showed up to work, and he's enjoying his morning coffee, and he's dealing with guests all day long, and in his mind, whenever a guest reports a theft, well, you call the police, and you let the police handle it, and, okay, I'll call the police, oh, the police are coming, don't... That's a normal reaction. That doesn't mean he was part of the gang that stole her motorcycle. But more interestingly, people made this assumption based on the timing, because they thought, just as Noraly did, they thought the thieves were right there when Noraly was there, and then when she showed up, they put the motorcycle on the street and ran away. So they're saying, when Noraly told the hotel staff that there is an air tag on the motorcycle and that she's going to go look for it, then the hotel staff got on the phone and they called the thieves and said, oh, she's coming, the foreigner is coming. There's an air tag in the motorcycle. She knows where you are. Get out of there now. Like, he alerted them that Noraly was coming, and then they hid, and then they put the motorcycle on the street and ran away. So that's what they assumed happened. But if you watch the video and you pay attention, it turns out that that is complete nonsense, because Noraly breaks it down later on. She's watching the CCTV video, and in the CCTV footage from the hotel, she sees that the thieves took her motorcycle at 5 in the morning. So 5 a.m., you can see the two men taking her motorcycle. And that really, I find that really frustrating, though, because it seems like Noraly had access to the hotel CCTV footage. I want to see all of it. I want to see everything. I want to see both men. I want to see everything they did. I want to see how they removed the cover from her motorcycle. I want to see them wrap. I want to see the entire theft from beginning to end. But she only shows like 4 seconds of video in her video. Maybe that's all they allowed her. I don't know the circumstances, but it drives me crazy. I want to see the whole story, but she only showed like 4 seconds. But anyway, they stole the motorcycle at 5 a.m. She saw that in the hotel video. And then she saw the CCTV footage from the shop. She saw everything that happened. She watched the whole video. She told the whole story. And these thieves in the video abandoned her motorcycle at 20 after 6. And Noraly didn't even get there until 8:30. So the motorcycle was sitting on the street, totally abandoned, no thieves, they left, and had been on the street from 6:20 until 8:30. So over 2 hours, the motorcycle was just sitting there the entire time in full view. So while Noraly was sleeping, while she was showering, she went down to get breakfast, she had her breakfast, all of that, while that was taking place, the motorcycle was already sitting there on the street, abandoned by the thieves. So this whole theory about the hotel staff calling the thieves, oh, the foreigner is coming, get out of there, get out now. All of that was nonsense because the thieves, they already left 2 hours and 10 minutes earlier, right? So, and anybody who watched the video and has half a brain cell could figure that out. But all these people in the comments who think they know what's going on, oh, the hotel staff were in on it. They called the thieves and warned them that Noraly was coming, told them about, it's all absolute nonsense, but everybody confidently writes that in the comments, kind of typical of the average population, I guess. It was interesting to see the moment when Itchy Boots, when Noraly saw her motorcycle and then ran up to it. Of course, at that time, she was still assuming that the thieves had just left it there like seconds ago. So she was looking around her going, yeah, the thieves are probably right here watching us, right? But of course, as I explained, the thieves were long gone. They left over 2 hours ago. They weren't there. And then from that point, Itchy Boots had to do her own detective work, try to figure out what happened by watching the CCTV footage, looking at the condition of the motorcycle, and that sort of thing. And that was really interesting for me. I love this whole sequence because it was a rare moment in an Itchy Boots video to see a lot of behind the scenes stuff, because she doesn't generally show anything. She treats her videos like a professional travel show and doesn't show anything going on in the background. So, but in this case, it was such an unusual situation. You got to see her in real life doing real things. And I found it kind of fascinating. I learned all kinds of things about Noraly and the whole Itchy Boots experience. So one thing that surprised me was that when she found her motorcycle, it still had all of her bags on it. Not all of them, but the one on the front wheel, the fender on the front, the big saddlebags on the back, other bags that were attached. All these bags were still on the motorcycle. And then she commented, oh, they didn't steal any of my bags, or they didn't steal anything that was inside the bags. And that kind of surprised me because I just assumed that she would strip the motorcycle completely, bring everything into her hotel room, because I've often commented that in her videos, we never see her unload the motorcycle, move into her room, and then pack up in the morning and load the bags onto her motorcycle. We never see any of that. I've been watching her videos for 5 years, I guess. And I don't think I've ever seen her do it one time. And I'm very interested. I love the technology. I like to see all the gear, how it works, mounting the cameras, mounting the bags, how easy are they to put on, to access, and all these things. But I never get that pleasure from her videos because she never shows it. But here we find out that at this hotel anyway, she left most of her bags on the bike. She has one big bag that goes over the gas tank. And I guess that's where she keeps everything important. And she took that inside the hotel and maybe another bag. I'm not clear how many bags she has. But she said, yeah, sometimes it's so much trouble removing these bags. She just leaves it on the motorcycle overnight. And then she just takes a big cover and covers up the motorcycle with a tarp, basically. And then people can't. But anyway, so when they stole her motorcycle, they stole all her bags as well. And apparently they didn't take the bags, and they didn't even remove the contents. So that was kind of an interesting look into the life of Noraly. It surprised me that she would leave anything on the motorbike ever. But yeah, apparently that's what she does. And this time, she had to remove the bags because she had to fix the bike. I'll explain what happened there in a minute. But she had to do a bunch of mechanical repair work. And in order to do that, she had to remove the bags, and you saw a little bit of her undoing this strap and undoing that strap and then untying this. And it looked really cumbersome to me. I'm a bit of a connoisseur of bags that you attach to bicycles or motorcycles and gear, backpacks, things like that. And it looked like a very awkward system. A lot of individual straps that have to be looped through something and looped through a buckle and tightened down, and then over here tighten this, and so many small bags everywhere. It seemed, to me anyway, it looked like a very inefficient, cumbersome way of packing up a motorcycle. But who knows? You'd have to try it out for yourself to see how it really works. But anyway, we got to see her doing that, which I found kind of interesting, seeing it for the first time. And it turns out that the thieves, what they did, apparently, was they took a strap, like a heavy-duty strap, which makes me think they do this routinely. They're organized, because it was the kind of strap. It's not like a bungee cord. We're talking about a heavy-duty strap. And the only reason anybody would be driving around at night, two men on a motorcycle carrying a heavy-duty strap like that, is because they were out there to steal motorcycles. And maybe they targeted her, like maybe they saw her motorcycle during the day and they knew where it was parked and they came back specifically to get it. Though it does seem odd to me that they would come at 5 in the morning. If I were going to do that, I'd come at 2 in the morning, 3, 5 o'clock. In a country like Iraq, people are waking up. People are starting their day at 5 a.m. So I'd be out there at 2:30, something like that, when a greater chance that people are sleeping. But anyway, so they were clearly dedicated thieves. This was not a theft of opportunity. They went there to get that motorcycle. And again, something that really puzzled me was that when Noraly found her motorcycle, this heavy-duty strap was still attached. What they did is they wrapped it around the handlebars, essentially, and then they attached it to another motorcycle. So one guy riding their motorcycle, one guy sitting on Noraly's motorcycle, and then they pulled it. And then a weird thing is, again, Noraly doesn't know the answer to this. There's an hour and 20 minutes. They stole the motorbike at 5, and they abandoned it in front of this store at 6:20. So there's like an hour and 20 minutes unaccounted for. It's like, what were these guys doing for an hour and 20 minutes? And I guess the logical assumption is that they were trying to start the motorcycle. They couldn't get it started. And maybe they tried to like bump start it, where they pull it up to a certain speed, and then the guy will engage the clutch and they try to start the bike that way. Maybe they fiddled around with all the switches and the wires, things like that. But apparently with this older motorbike, there's a fuel switch, and then Noraly turns off the fuel switch. So there's the only gas available is what's in the carburetor when she turns off the bike. And these guys would have to know that they have to turn on the switch to get the fuel flowing. But according to Noraly, they can't start it without a key anyway, unless you're James Bond or Jason Bourne and you're an experienced thief and you know everything about 1980s Yamahas. You can't start the bike. You can't start it without the key. There's no way to do it. So she was like, I have no idea what these guys were doing. But she said while she was watching the CCTV, she saw them like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. She called it like a slapstick comedy. She saw them pull up in front of the shop on their CCTV, and then both of them fell over. So the guy was probably trying to pull them up to speed, and the guy in Noraly's bike popped the clutch to get, to kickstart the bike, and it jerked backwards, and then they both just fell over. And then right at that point, Noraly says they picked up the bike, they picked it up, put it back on the kickstand, and then they argued for a few minutes, and then they hopped on the motorbike and took off on their motorbike and took off, and they left Noraly's motorbike there. But it seems so weird to me that they would leave the strap behind. It costs money. They use it for their thefts. So I'm very curious, like, why? I mean, it would only take 2 seconds to just unwrap it and then hop on their motorbike and go away. So why did they leave it behind? It seems very weird to me. It feels like maybe somebody startled them. Like somebody was like, hey, what are you guys doing over there? And then they panicked and ran away. But the way Noraly described the video, no, they just argued for a while. They talked with each other, and then they just went, let's give up. And they got back on their motorcycle and rode away. But they didn't bring their strap with them. I find that really weird. A little detail that puzzles me. And luckily for Noraly, they didn't take the bags. They didn't even take the contents of the bags. The only thing missing that she noticed was her rain jacket, because she had her rain jacket kind of stuffed into an area near the handlebars. And that was missing. And the bike was damaged because it fell over. So the gear shift lever was bent, the brake lever and different things. The mirror was out of position. So all of that was kind of damaged because the bike fell over. It probably fell over several times. And then the big damage they did, and this is the real puzzle and a bit of a learning experience for me, was there's like a thick bundle of wires, 14 wires all together in one bundle, and they cut it. They'd like cut through all the electronics of the motorbike. And you could tell when Noraly saw that, she was upset. It's like, oh, like, why would you, okay, you tried to steal my motorcycle. I understand people might be horrible people. This is what they do. They could be Syrian refugees. I was reading a bit about this city this morning, and according to what I read on Wikipedia, there's like 450,000 Syrian refugees in just that city, Erbil. And so, of course, a lot of them would be in a lot of trouble, just trying to survive, and there's probably a lot of theft because of these Syrian refugees. And I think a lot of the Iraqi people leaving comments in the video were saying, okay, those guys weren't Iraqis, they were probably Syrian refugees. And they're saying, here in Iraq, we don't steal, they were Syrians that were doing it. They're pointing the blame at the Syrian refugees and defending their own country. So I can see Noraly concluding, okay, I got my motorcycle back, no harm, no foul, just let it go. But they cut that wire. And that to me, at first, it seemed vindictive. Like, okay, they can't steal the motorcycle, so just to be jerks, they thought, let's really hurt this foreigner, and let's get out our big wire cutters and cut through all the wires and basically disable her motorcycle. And that seemed really awful. And there's one funny point in the video where Noraly found the fact that they cut all the wires, and then they did that, and then she said, "Oh, what a bunch of," and then the video cut right there. So I think she said something really derogatory about them, like an insult, like, "Oh, look what they did, what a bunch of," and then she said something bad, and then she cut the video right there and removed that from the video. So I'm very curious, when Noraly gets upset, what does she call people? Was it a Dutch word? Probably an English word. I'm sure it's not a terrible word. Profanity doesn't seem to be a big part of her life. So anyway, I'm very curious what she actually called these guys. But one thing I learned is that this system of wires, this bundle of wires, 14 wires, all the electronics connecting this whole motorcycle's systems together, I guess that's called a loom, L-O-O-M, a loom. And Noraly kept saying that. She kept saying, "Oh, they cut the loom. They did this to the loom. I have to do this with the loom." But I didn't really know what she was talking about. I couldn't quite understand because of her Dutch accent. I didn't hear the word loom, but in the comments, I saw lots of people who know about motorcycles talking about loom. And it's like, oh, that's what she's saying. So that's what they call that thing. That bundle of wires is called a loom, and they cut the loom. But it turns out that I talked about how Moritz did a custom build on this motorcycle, and part of his custom build was putting in 2 looms. And I guess she probably talked about that in her previous videos, but I don't really remember this. I wouldn't have understood what she was talking about. But I guess normally a motorcycle has a loom, and that's it. But this guy put in a backup loom with the idea of redundancy. So I don't know, maybe if this loom gets damaged or she loses her key and can't use the ignition anymore, she can unplug the main loom and plug in the secondary loom, and then she can still start the bike with a kickstart. So it's like a simple electrical system. So her bike had 2 looms, and the thieves cut the main loom, but then Noraly was able to uncover the engine, get out her tools, and then she could plug in the secondary loom, and she could still start up her motorbike and ride away. So I thought that was pretty amazing. So all this talk about getting a custom-built old motorcycle, and as Noraly herself said, she never thought the redundant loom, the secondary loom, would come in handy. She thought it was kind of pointless to have it. Turned out it was absolutely important, because here we have these idiot thieves cut all the wires, and then she was able to just plug in the second set of wires. She doesn't have lights, she doesn't have any electronics like that, but the secondary loom allows her to kickstart the motorbike and just ride away. So that was pretty cool. And as a long-term viewer of Itchy Boots videos, it was kind of nice to see her outside of her normal life, doing something different and even dressed differently, because usually all you ever see of her is her helmet, her full-on head-to-toe motorcycle armor, all the gear that she wears all day for protection. And then you might see her a little bit in the hotel afterwards, and then she has the GoPro kind of framing her face, and she sums up the day and tells you to give the video a big thumbs up and stuff like that. And that's all you ever see. You don't see her eating generally. You don't see her doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff. But here, she had to work on her motorcycle in the middle of the street, and because it was part of the overall story, she took video of it. So you just got to see her dressed in black pants, running shoes, a t-shirt, and then she's wrenching away on her motorbike and rewiring it and plugging in the new loom and things like that. And it was just kind of nice. It was just kind of cool to see Noraly in a normal day-to-day environment, dressed in her hanging out clothes rather than her motorcycle gear, head to toe. Yeah, it was just kind of nice. And it was nice to see her sort of emotional. She was really in shock, as she said herself, when this happened, and I can understand that. And another funny thing that happened is at some point while she's working on her motorbike, 2 other men were there. One of them was definitely from Scotland, from Glasgow, and the other guy, he might have been from Scotland too. I'm not quite sure, but there were 2 men there. And then they just came out of nowhere, but it turns out that the shop owner, where Noraly was in front of his shop fixing, and she watched his CCTV footage, that shop owner knew these Scottish guys. They lived in a village outside of Erbil, called them and said, hey, there's a foreigner here, she's in trouble, I don't speak English, like, could you come to town and help her out? She could use some help. So these 2 complete strangers from Scotland came into town to help Noraly, and they brought her food and drinks. And as they said, the guy was very nice, the way he phrased it. He says, yeah, we just wanted to make sure, we want to bring you some food and make sure you're okay. Make sure you're feeling safe and secure. Just wanted to help you out any way we can. So these 2 random guys from Scotland just kind of came and hung out with her while she was working on the bike. And a funny part of the story is that after all this time, Noraly had found the motorbike herself, looked at all this sort of stuff, figured out what's wrong with her motorcycle, went back to the hotel, did whatever she did there. Maybe she watched the CCTV footage at the hotel, talked with staff there. She didn't take any video of that. Got her tools, came all the way back to the bike, working on the bike, dismantling it, fixing everything, taking the bags off, and then the police showed up, finally. It was like, what in the world? Again, that gets to what I was talking about, that you think when you're robbed and you summon the police, that it's going to be like this magic bullet, and these police are just going to appear and let's get in the car and let's chase the bad guys. We're the good guys. Let's go get the bad guys. But she did all this time passed, and she was in the middle of repairing her motorcycle, and then a police car showed up, and 3 police officers came out. And I remember having that feeling as well, to get back to my story of when my smartphone was stolen. I eventually went to the police station, and when I went to the police to report the theft, I had tracking of my phone on my phone. I can't remember what I had. It was the typical Google tracking, and I could see where my phone had gone. The thief took it on a motorcycle, and I could see on Google Maps exactly where he went. So when I went to the police station, I was exactly like Noraly. I go into the police station, my phone was stolen, Look, let's go. It's right here, let's go look. And of course, the police are used to this sort of thing, and essentially nothing happened, because that's not how the world works. In my mind, I show them, here's where the phone was last seen. In my mind, I was honestly assuming that it would be like, let's go guys, let's go. They'd get all suited up, get a sniper rifle, they'd put on their bulletproof, and then we would all pile into a police car, hit the siren, and we're going to go and go and try to find the thieves in my phone. In my mind, I'm such a dummy, I was honestly expecting that to happen. And Noraly, of course, was also expecting that to happen. But that's not how the world works. You walk into a police station, well, there's a waiting period. You have to report the theft. You have to fill out a bunch of forms. You have to have an interview. You have to go through all these things, and maybe a week from now, maybe they might go looking, but the world doesn't work that way. When you tell the police you were just robbed, normally all you do is report it, and that's the end of it. They're not going to suddenly jump in their car and go tearing off into the streets to find the thieves. That happens maybe in movies, in TV shows, but it does not happen in real life. So I thought that was kind of funny. For Itchy Boots, the police were, a little bit slow in their response. You'd think they would show up quicker than that. I mean, I don't know how much time had passed, really. I don't know what the police are dealing with. But it does seem like they were a little bit late showing up. And I would love to go back in time. Man, if I could get a bird's eye view of the whole scene and understand everything that happened, I would pay a lot of money to be able to get that. If I could actually watch the thieves do the theft and then listen in on the phone call from the hotel clerk calling the police. What did he say to the police? Who answered the phone at the police station? What happened over there? What did the police officers say? Like everything that was going on behind the scenes. And then the police getting in their police car, going to find Itchy Boots. I'd love to be able to see that. And if I could see the thieves afterwards, I would pay very good money to see that, if I had good money to pay. Because they abandoned the bike at 6:20. Noraly didn't get there to 8:30. So basically, where did they go after they abandoned her motorcycle, gave up on it, and they got on their motorbike? Where did they ride to? Did they go have coffee? Did they have breakfast? Did they laugh and joke among themselves about what just happened? Did they talk with other thieves? Or did they go home to their families who are hungry and starving, and they're saying, like, did you steal something? Did you get any money? Because I need to go to the market and buy food for our children. Maybe that's the reality for these men. I doubt it, but maybe. I don't know. And more interesting, do they know whose motorcycle they stole? Like, did they have any idea how famous Noraly is? Like, if they knew who she was, would they still steal her motorcycle? Because, again, speaking of Hollywood movies, it's sort of like the movie Taken. These guys, whatever, they kidnapped, I can't remember the plot anymore, they kidnapped a girl, right? The bad guys kidnapped a girl for some reason, but they don't know who she is. And it turns out, of course, she was the daughter of Liam Neeson's character. And of course, because this is a movie, Liam Neeson was like the most highly trained secret agent, assassin, killer on the planet. And then he's like, I know who you are. I will find you. I will track you down. And then you can imagine these thieves. They're like, what did we do? I just recently watched a Rick and Morty episode where Morty was off in space having his own adventure. And then the bad guys they captured Morty at gunpoint. They basically kidnapped Morty and brought him back to gang headquarters, thinking they were doing a good thing. And then the leader of the gang looked at them like, what did you do? Don't you know who this is? This is Morty. And they're like, Morty, what are you talking about? He's the grandson of Rick. Rick, the greatest, the smartest man in the universe, this killer. It's like, what have you done? And so then they got to call Rick and say, Rick, so sorry. We didn't know Morty was yours. We apologize, because they know Rick is going to come kill all of them to get Morty back. And you see the same thing in all these movies, right? John Wick, where the Russian mob, the kid, the son, the idiot, steals John Wick's car, kills his dog, and then tells his father what he did. And then his father says, do you know what you've done? Do you have any idea whose car you stole? And the kid's like, I don't know. That was John Wick, the Baba Yaga. It's like, So, so I like to think of these thieves. They go back to their gang and they're all sitting around chatting amongst themselves. Oh, what did you steal last night? Oh, I got this. I stole this laptop from this dumb foreigner. Oh, I stole this smartphone from this other dumb foreigner. They're all laughing about it. And these two guys say, yeah, we tried to steal this foreigner's motorcycle, but we couldn't get it started. We had to leave it at the side of the street. And they're chatting. And they're like, oh, really? What kind of a motorcycle was it? Oh, it was like this older one, Yamaha Tenerife. And the other gang members are like, their eyes are widening. What? Do you know whose motorcycle that is? That's Itchy Boots. Are you guys out of your mind? You got to get out of town because, there a million people are going to watch this video, and there's nowhere these thieves can hide once the Itchy Boots army starts looking for them, right? Anyway, that makes me laugh to think about these guys. But maybe they even knew and they don't care. It's like, well, what are they going to do to us? We're Syrian refugees. It's not like they can make our lives worse than it already is. But anyway, I wish I could see all of this story from beginning to end. And there's so many other little details I'm curious about. And I do find Noraly a bit frustrating as a storyteller because she normally doesn't give any details at all. In this case, I'm happy because she gave a lot of details, but still I need more. There's so many little things that I don't understand. One thing I don't understand and I'm quite curious about, you see a lot of people talking about in the comments, was how this motorcycle could have been stolen from a very fancy hotel. So I need to know, where was it parked? Because these guys must have taken a long time to do it. The motorcycle was covered with a tarp. It's on CCTV, so they had to find the motorcycle, remove the tarp, somehow move it out of there, put a strap around it, attach it to another motorbike, and then drive it away. And they didn't get very far. They just got basically around the corner. For an hour and 20 minutes, they're busy working on this motorbike. But again, doesn't a fancy hotel have more security than that? So how in the world could this have happened? But there was a little bit of an answer to that question, because at the end of the video, or towards the end, Noraly rides her motorcycle back to the hotel. She reattached the loom, managed to kickstart it. And then she parked her motorcycle back at the hotel. And she doesn't specify, but I'm assuming that parking area is the same place from where it was stolen. And when you look at it, it's like, well, no wonder it got stolen, because it looks like a garbage dump. It doesn't look like it has any kind of a gate. There's no security. It looks like a dark alleyway with garbage everywhere, junk everywhere. And there's no lighting. It doesn't look visible at all. And unless there was a security guard posted nearby, when I saw that area and I looked at it, it was like, well, it kind of makes sense now that the thieves had all the time in the world to work on the bike back there. Nobody would have even known what they were doing, because it's very, like an alleyway, dark and kind of hidden behind the hotel. It didn't look very secure at all. But again, Noraly didn't actually comment on that, and she didn't talk about that this was where the bike was, and the hotel has no security guards. Again, I'm wondering about that. Like, everywhere I go in the world, there are security guards everywhere, and they're just roaming around constantly, and they've all got big guns. And Iraq, you'd think, would be flooded with men with guns guarding things, but apparently at this quite fancy hotel, there's like no security. And the other thing was, what about a lock? Because, every time, if you tell anybody about a theft, like my smartphone was stolen, my laptop was stolen, I was pickpocketed, my motorbike, my car, every single person you tell that story to will tell you what you did wrong. it is this whole, it's almost like a blame the victim kind of instinct that is like, well, no wonder you should have done this and you should have. I know they're just trying to be helpful. They're trying to give you suggestions for next time. So this doesn't happen again. You should do this and make sure you don't do this. And they basically point out why it was your fault that you were robbed. It's just human nature to do that. Yeah, this whole blaming the victim thing. And in the comments to Itchy Boots' video, there's dozens and dozens and dozens, probably, I think there's like 7,000 comments already, just overnight in the last 12 hours. There's like 7,000 comments, and probably half of them are people telling her what to do in the future, like what kind of locks she needs. You got to put this lock on your bike and this lock, and what I do this, and I do this, and I do this. Everybody tells her what they do to lock up their motorcycle and what she should do. But all those comments beg the question, well, did she have a lock on the motorbike? It makes sense to me that she'd have some kind of lock, right? But she never mentions it. It never comes up. And I want to know, well, these thieves, they wrapped a strap around the motorbike and pulled it down the street. But was there a chain through the wheel? Was there a big kryptonite lock through the wheel? Was there some sort of lock on the motorbike? And if so, did they cut through the lock? This never ever comes up. And I'm really curious about that. Noraly never mentions it. And I would just assume that there wasn't a lock, but at the very end of the video, she talks about parking her motorbike back at the hotel. And then she says, okay, now I'm a little bit freaked out, so this time I'm going to remove all the bags. And she said, I'm going to put a second lock on the motorcycle. And my ears like, what? What do you mean second lock? You had one lock on it already and the thieves cut through it? Like, that never came up in the video. So now I'm curious. Second lock? So there were two of them and you only put one on? But there was no mention of a lock being on the motorcycle and then the thieves cutting it. So I'm very curious about that part of the story as well. One other thing, maybe the last thing that jumped out at me, not necessarily about the theft, but about the video itself, was the music that she played. I always end up tilting my head a little bit at her choice of music. And I mean, I'm the last person to say anything about music because I have no musical taste at all. But right in the middle of her fixing her motorbike, there's sort of a montage sequence of her repairing her motorcycle, rewiring it, all that sort of thing. And then she put in a musical piece because of the video montage. And it was just such a weird piece of music. It jumped out at me. It was like, that's strange. It had this odd quality to it, a happy, upbeat, cartoony sort of quality. And it always makes me think about, again, I'd love to know more about the behind the scenes of everything. And then when it comes to an Itchy Boots video by Noraly, I'd love to know how this works in terms of how she edits things, the choices she makes. And like I said, for this video, I was very surprised and pleased that she took any video at all, because my thought would be that even her motorcycle being stolen, she'd be so focused on the motorcycle that she would forget to take any video, because she does that quite often. For her, she's not really a YouTuber first. Her passion, her love is her motorcycle. She wants to ride the motorcycle. And then taking video, like, she's not a storyteller. And then telling the story feels like a secondary thought to her. And quite often she forgets or just doesn't bother to take any video. Seems that way to me anyway. So in this case, motorcycle being stolen, I wouldn't have been surprised at all if she didn't shoot any video at all. But she did. She grabbed a GoPro and shot a little bit of it. But even the amount of video she shot and the way she shot it seemed weird to me. There's so much more. Me personally, of course, I would have filmed nonstop the entire time, because I'd have a neck mount, and even if I wasn't holding a GoPro, I would have a GoPro around my neck, and it's no big deal, right? You just hit record and just let it run, and you don't have to do anything, and everywhere you turn, the GoPro is just filming everything all the time. It's not a chore to do that. So, but there were all of the aftermath of her speaking afterwards to the police, like when the police showed up, and no video of that either. I mean, it seems like a big dramatic part of the story. So if I were sitting there working on the motorcycle and the police car showed up, first thing I would do is just grab the GoPro, hit record, and get at least a few seconds of the police car, get the police coming out of the car, and then maybe the police would tell you, no filming, no filming. And you couldn't film your conversation with them or something. And she did say that the shop owner wouldn't let her take video of the CCTV footage, said that would be illegal, only the police can see it. So she talked about that, but there's so much more in the story she didn't tell and didn't take any video of. But that's her style. And then for me, so I would like to know her thought process. Like, does it even occur to her that while she's editing the video, does she think, oh, I don't have any video of the police arriving, the police car. I don't have any video of this, or does it even, or when the police car shows up, does she have a part of her brain that goes, oh, I should take video of that? I don't think so, because she's so focused on just the motorcycle. Taking video, I think, is just sort of a secondary thought in her brain. And the music always jumps out at me, because the music to me always seems weird in one of her videos. And again, I'm the last person to criticize, because the way I pick music on my laptop, the old one and the new one, all I do is use YouTube audio. Like, I go to the YouTube audio library. I don't pay for a subscription to the bit sound audio companies. I can't think of the names right now, but they're pretty expensive, and so I don't bother paying for it. So I just have a folder on my laptop with hundreds and hundreds of YouTube audio library tracks. And if I want to put in some music, I just play each one in a row and go, and I just go down the list until I hear something that seems to fit the tone of the situation. And I just do that over and over again. I just go through the whole folder, listening and listening and listening until I come across something like, oh, I think that's okay. I stick it in. I don't put a lot of effort into it. So I'm pretty sure Itchy Boots, Noraly, maybe she puts even less effort into it, because this music choice, just so bizarre to me. I'm listening to it. It's like, why would you choose that music? It's so weird. But then again, I always see comments on her videos where people love her music. They always praise it. It's like, oh, the music you play is so amazing. So maybe I'm just weird or something. But this music in particular, I thought, I can see how you might pick it at random. But then if I were editing the video later, like listening to it one more time before exporting it, I'd watch the whole video. When I got to that song, I'd go like, ooh, no, that actually, that doesn't fit. Let's go get something else. But yeah, she left it in. But I would like to know her thought pattern. Like, does she hear it? Like, if I say to her in person, like, what about that music? What do you think about it? And she listens to it herself, and would she go, oh yeah, it sounds great to me. I think that really works. Oh, okay, well, I guess that's, or does she just do it so randomly, just grabs any music and throws it in without really spending any time on it? I'm not really sure. But anyway, she got her motorcycle back. Oh, the last part of the story. I'm glad I thought of this. She did say at the very end that when the police came, they said to her, oh, like, what do you want us to do? Do you want to come to the police station, file a report? And then, as Itchy Boots said, do you want to come, file a report, go to court, all this stuff? And then she instantly said, no. I got my motorcycle back. I don't care. Beyond that, I don't care whether you catch the guys, whether they ever get caught. I don't care who they are, what's going on. No. I don't want to waste time going to the police station. No. And I was thinking about that. And again, it seems like a very itchy boots thing to do, because I would love to go to the police station. You're in Iraq. You're in Kurdistan, the Kurdistan part of Iraq. Your motorcycle was nearly stolen. That's a big adventure. But now you have the opportunity to go into a police station and see how it works. Like, go report the theft. They're probably going to put you in the police car. They drive you to the police station, and you get to go inside the police station and go through the whole procedure. For me, that would be so fascinating. And yet it kind of points to what I was saying, that for Noraly, like, storytelling is kind of secondary for her, I think. And even the countries she visits are secondary to her. She doesn't really care that much about what country she's in. She'll pick a country based on other people will like to see it in the video, of course. But I think for her personally, it's the motorcycle, riding motorcycles. That's what she's interested in. And the rest of it is just sort of irrelevant, because you never really shows much about the countries that she's in. And here she has an opportunity to go to a place where you normally would have no access to. And going back to my story, here in Sumatra, when my smartphone was stolen, I had no real reason to go to the police station. Like, normally I think foreigners, tourists, if they get robbed, they have insurance, like theft insurance, which I don't have. So, but in order to get compensation, to file a claim, they have to have a police report. So their laptop, their camera is stolen, they go to the police station, they file a report, but they don't do it thinking that they're going to get any benefit out of it, that reporting it to the police means they're going to get their camera back. No, they just need a copy of the police report. They can submit it to their insurance company, and they get money so they can buy a new camera, a new laptop, which is very smart. But that's the only reason people go to the police station. So, but when I was in Sumatra last time, I don't have any theft insurance, so there was no reason for me to go to the police station at all. But I wanted to. I thought it would be quite interesting to do. And everybody, I think people I told the story to, they kept telling me, it's like, oh, did you go to the police? Did you go to the police? Did you call the police? Did you go to the police? And they encouraged me to do it. So eventually, I got on my bike and I rode to the police station, and I went there on my own. And I just walked in and went up to the front desk and said, somebody stole my phone. I would like to report the theft. And it was a wonderful experience. It was amazing because the police did not, as I said already, they did not summon the troops, get out their guns, and go find the thieves. None of that happened. But they were very helpful, very friendly, very organized, and the whole police station just sort of kicked into action. And they brought me to a back room and said, okay, here, sit down for a minute. Here's a cup of coffee. Have another cup of coffee. Here are some snacks. And a detective, they assigned my case to a detective, and a detective came into the room, talked to me. She spoke English, but she still wouldn't even do the interview yet because they insisted on having a translator, an interpreter. I always get confused about which one is the appropriate word. Let me look this up. Okay. Interpreter. So yeah, a translator would normally work with written. You get a piece of paper with something written on it and you translate it from one language to another. An interpreter is dealing with people, two people trying to communicate, and the interpreter helps them. So the detective said, no, we are waiting for an interpreter. And then eventually a man showed up at the police station. He was like a local English teacher, I think. And he was known for being very good in English. And they hire him as a freelancer at the police station. And then they had to wait for him to show up. So he came in And then once the interpreter was there, and the detective was at her desk, and the interpreter was there, and then she asked me all these questions about what happened, and like very, very detailed everything. And then the interpreter interpreted everything I said, and she typed everything out, and then they printed it out in English. I had to read everything and then correct any mistakes that I thought she made or that were miscommunication. And then she retyped everything, corrected everything I pointed out, printed it out again. I read it. Yep, that's exactly what happened. And then I had to sign everything. I had to sign all kinds of papers, all kinds of forms, all kinds of things. So it was a really interesting experience. And just to see the police station, how huge it was. This was in the city of Siantar here in Sumatra, Pematang, Siantar. That's where the theft occurred. And the police station was huge, so big. And you saw all the police officers and their systems and their bulletin boards, their computers, and you got to see how everything worked. And then I got to know the detective fairly well. She ended up being my sponsor. I had to get a visa extension, and I needed a sponsor at that time. And then I called her up afterwards, and because we got to know each other a bit, and I said, I need a sponsor for immigration. Would you mind being my sponsor? And she agreed to do it. So filing the police report was so interesting. And not only that, because I went to the police station, filed the report, when I left, there were all these reporters outside waiting for me. And I didn't know they were reporters. There was like a group of men out there, and they stopped me and said, "Oh, what are you doing at the police station?" And they asked me all these questions about who I am, what happened, why I'm there. And I just thought they were a bunch of local people. They always ask you questions about everything. And I just told them the whole story. And then suddenly my story was all over the news, all of the local internet press and local newspapers. There was the story of this foreigner with my picture about me having my phone stolen. And then everywhere I went in Siantar after that, people recognized me. And they all came up to talk to me and says, "Oh, you had your phone stolen." And these were local Indonesian people, and they would say, "Oh, we apologize. We're so sorry this happened to you." And everybody had their story. Everybody that came up to me said, "We're sorry. We apologize on behalf of all the people of Indonesia. We have some bad people here. This is terrible." And then they would say, 2 years ago, my phone was stolen the same way, or my daughter's phone was stolen, my husband's phone was stolen. Everybody told me their stories about being robbed as well. So going to the police station led to so many interesting things. And again, if I were Itchy Boots, and I know going to the police station is not going to do anything, but man, you have this opportunity for that experience, I would do it. But in her case, all she was thinking about, all she wants to do is fix her motorcycle and leave and get back on the road. So, but again, that's the Noraly is interested in that, and not so much the nitty-gritty of everything that happens. So, yeah, that's my story, watching that video last night. I found it so interesting, so entertaining, and hopefully there will be more. I hope there's going to be a follow-up. Maybe these men will be arrested. Itchy Boots will learn about it, and then it will show up in later videos. Because I was talking about how famous she is. One last interesting angle on this is that in the comments to the video, I noticed a lot of comments from people in Africa, because she rode her motorcycle all the way through Africa, and people there now follow her channel. And a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, Noraly, you traveled all through Africa, and everybody in the world thinks Africa is such a terrible, such a dangerous place, and yet your motorcycle was never stolen in Africa. Nobody robbed you in Africa, but here you are in Iraq, and someone steals your motorcycle. So what do you think about Africa now?" They're basically saying that, which I thought was kind of interesting. And thinking about Africa, while she was there, she made one clickbait thumbnail and title. She was in Nigeria. I'm sure everyone remembers this story. And she was going through a bunch of checkpoints, the military and the police. There's a lot of checkpoints on the road. And she got to one checkpoint, and these two men were kind of laughing and joking with her, saying, like, hey, can you give us some money? Look at your expensive motorcycle. Can you give us something? Can you give us some money? And she made that the subject of the title, something like, corruption in Nigeria. And she chose a thumbnail, a screen grab of the police officer or the soldier with a really angry look on his face, like, "Rrr." Most of the time in the video, they were smiling and laughing and joking, but in the thumbnail, she made it look like a very serious case of extortion and corruption. And because she put that in her video, both those men were fired. They lost their jobs. So that shows how much influence she has with her videos. So it makes me think about what's going to be the fallout of this motorcycle theft in Iraq. Is it going to hit the local news? Is everybody going to be looking for these two thieves? And will these thieves end up arrested and in the news? And will this be an ongoing story? I mean, she, just by putting in a thumbnail picture, she got two men in Africa fired from their jobs. So what's going to happen that she posts an entire video about two men stealing her motorcycle? So it's interesting to think about what effect that is going to have. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. So as always, I've been talking about that one story for a very long time, and I'm going to shut down now, end the Planet Doug podcast for today. So as always, thank you for hanging out with me, listening to my stories. I hope you enjoyed that a little bit. And if you did enjoy it, come back for the next one. And if you do come back, I'll talk to you then.